And I think that's really important what you're talking about that making the list, because I think that keeps you, people that do that, and I know there's a lot of people that do and think, especially when The Secret came out, it's like, okay, make a list of the qualities that you're looking for. Well, the qualities that you're looking for may be more unconscious than conscious, in fact.
Right.
And when you can allow yourself to go, okay, I had some I know when I was single, I had some bottom line things. They had to have a job, they needed to have a car.
Right.
Nobody
in jail.
Right, nobody in jail. But, short of that, I was hoping.
You're breathing and have a pulse.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing. These are the jokes that we make. But then there are people who are obsessive list makers who have said to me, oh, well, you didn't have very high standards. You were just looking for the first person who came by. And that's absolutely not true. You avoid both extremes. And again, it goes back to self-confidence and knowing yourself well enough to know that, just because some hot guy comes up to you in a bar and says, let's go have a drink, you don't have to say yes to that.
And that doesn't mean that hot guy is anything you'd really want to have more than a conversation with.
Right.
Because I remember when I was single that at one point I did meet this guy and he was just so handsome, and I agreed to go to out to have a meal with him. And about 5 minutes into the meal, I realized there was nothing in his head, not a thought in his brain.
Pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Great. So wait, did you get up and leave?
No, I was polite enough to, get through the meal, but oh my gosh, it was one of the most painful hours I've ever spent.
Oh no.
So one of my criteria is they do have to be able to hold a conversation. They need to have enough, thought in their brain that they can at least keep up with me.
Right. Yes, that's important. But I think that you sort of know what you need and you know what's good for you and what's attractive to you without having to sort of sit down and do a spreadsheet.
I think
about it.
If you can trust yourself, if you can trust your own instincts about what feels right to you.
Uh-huh.
Because those feelings give you way more information. I think this is the funny thing, is that people don't really give credence to the fact that our feelings are a way of gathering information. So when we respond to what our feelings are telling us, that gives us way more information than we could possibly ever gather in a slew of questionnaires about a person. In fact, in the counseling industry, because I'm a licensed professional counselor, some of the studies have shown that, they have all these battery of tests, that they give people. But a counselor in an hour session can gain way more information by their feelings and in reactions to this person than they can in a whole battery of tests.
Well, I would agree with that. I think that just the idea of a standardized test, it's kind of going too big picture because in order to write a test, obviously people don't write a test for every individual. So
right.
how much are you going to get out of a test that's fairly general? It's interesting.
And I think that's the same. I think that's the same as a person making that list. They're going down a list. It's kind of like having that questionnaire. It's like a person can answer everything just right and still not be the right person for you.
Sure. Yes, because there's just something that's missing. Someone can look great on paper and then just not be what you want when you meet them.
That's right. I remember once I had met a guy through a long time ago through American Singles, which was a kind of a dating thing that was on the internet many years ago, and I met this guy. I saw his picture, and he was the most handsome man, and he was a doctor, and he had was working, and he was obviously smart, and he was extremely, like Christopher Reeves good looking, right? And
wow.
So I was thrilled to get to meet this guy. Well, as soon as I met him, it was like obvious that this was not going to fly because this guy was so effeminate. And now he's straight, but his gestures and his tone of voice and his affectations were extremely effeminate. And to me, that was a major turnoff. I know there are plenty of women that wouldn't have bothered, but for me, it just didn't feel good.
Right.
So even though he hit all the lists, he just wasn't making it once we met.
Right. And there's such a difference, too. One thing I'm just thinking about you saying effeminate, because with all of the hoopla about people calling Simon gay, one thing no one has ever called him is effeminate. Because he might be wearing sweater pants, but he is, what's that Monty Python thing about lumberjacks? The gay lumberjack.
Right.
He's a straight guy wearing pink.
Which I personally find sexy as hell.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. A friend of ours is a designer, John Bartlett, and he just had a new opening at his shop here in the Village, and all of his clothes this season are pink and bright yellow. And so when we went down there, Simon wore one of his shirts, which is pink and white, and wore a pair of pink loafers with them, and it was just the best thing ever, especially because even though it feels like we're still in winter, not summer, we've just gotten a little bit of sun, and there's nothing better than seeing a guy with the beginnings of a tan in a pink shirt and pink shoes. It's fantastic.
I agree. A guy who's comfortable in his masculinity, wearing those kinds of colors, I think it's sexy, because to me it shows that they're confident in who they are. And that that those affectations don't really affect who they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there was this wonderful T-shirt. Recently, last weekend, we went out to charity benefit, and it was one of those ones where there are a million people taking pictures and lots of reporters, and everything lines up everywhere. And so Simon saw this T-shirt that we both thought was hilarious, and on the front it said, "I personally killed fashion." And on the back, it had an old, Wild West pistol. So when we saw it, both of us was dying. And we said, okay, you have got to wear that.
That's great. So where do you expect the show to go this next season, and what are you thinking will happen in terms of relationships on the show?
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, at this point, it's been officially picked up. It's meant to begin filming later in the year, although it's not set who's coming back and who's not yet. So if we assume for the moment that everyone's coming back, then it would be very interesting to see how Luann reacts to being newly single. What's going on with Stephanie as she embarks on a new relationship. And, there are all sorts of different dynamics at play. One thing that will be new for Simon and myself is that come September, we will have 2 boys in school.
Wow.
Yes, I know. I can't believe that's happened.
That's a big change. Well, I've appreciated your being here, especially since it ended up being a surprise to you that we were actually still on the air today.
I'm so glad it worked out. I hate, when things get stuck, and I'm glad that we were able to do it. Thank you for having me.
And please let me know if Simon or anyone else from the show would like to be on the show. I'd love to have them on, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure I would enjoy having more conversations with you. In fact, I absolutely forgot to take our break at 1/4 till the hour because I was so involved in the conversation. So.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Simon and I have our book on raising kids in the city coming out in January. So even if we don't see each other between now and then, we should come back and talk about it then.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I'd love to do that. So have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And again, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much.